My name is Fhrynée. I use she, her pronouns. I am part of the organizing committee and a current PhD student at the University of Michigan, focusing on reproductive justice in the Caribbean with an emphasis on Haiti. And so I am honored to be up here moderating a panel with a group of people that need no introduction at all, but for the sake of order, I will list out their names. First, we will have Joan Mukogosi, Dr. Jallicia Jolly, Dázon Dixon Diallo, Regina Davis Moss, Byllye Avery, Deirdre Cooper Owens, Brittany Cooper, and it's the title of this plenary is Updating the Four Tenets of RJ for the 21st Century and Beyond. And I'm going to repeat something that nobody in this room needs, but the four tenets of RJ include the human right to have a child, the human right not to have a child, the human right to raise a child in a safe and healthy environment, and the human right for bodily autonomy and sexual freedom. So as Monet reminded us yesterday, it is up to us to check us and to update our principles. And so I see this plenary as asking us to take all the things that we have been talking about over the last few days and think about opportunities that lie within them. Posing questions such as, what do we need to do now to prepare for the future? That future includes like the shift in the demographic in our workforce, and as the youth panel sort of reminded us yesterday, the shift in how things will get done or can get done. And so we're asking, what role does reproductive justice and its four tenets play in our collective future? In the spirit of Sankofa, I find it very fitting that the people up here are tasked with taking on these questions in the ethos of updating, yet, dare I say, fortifying the tenets of RJ in this plenary are both our foremothers, elders, and soon-to-be elders. I like that. I think that's a better way to put it. Baby elders? Okay. I've been corrected. Baby elders. Okay. Those who were part of, up here we have people who were part of creating and stewarding the movement on the ground in the academy and beyond, reminding us that we have so much to learn from each other. And I can personally say as a young person, this is a reminder for me that this is not on our shoulders alone. In fact, we cannot do this alone. And as much as youth must rise up to the occasion, the future we seek to build must be done collectively. And lastly, before we start, I'll quote Ruha Benjamin in the books that hopefully everyone had a chance to get and will read. Benjamin says, the most effective means to refute the prevailing ideologies is to do so collectively, crafting new stories, images, ways of interacting, investments in those who have been denigrated and discarded. And so with that, I will turn it over to Joan, who will be our first speaker. Everyone will get 8 minutes, and I will point out when we have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
All right, thank you for such an incredible introduction. Don't start my clock yet, give me 2 seconds. All right, I have a timer. Okay. All right, it is so lovely to be in front of you all today. And also over these past few days, I've just been so happy to be surrounded by people whose work has inspired me for years, and also people whose work that I learned about and will continue to inspire me after today. And I want to say thank you so much to Loretta and to Carrie and to the whole production team for helping me get here all the way from London, but for inviting us into this space. So yeah, in typical eldest daughter of an immigrant parent, I wear a lot of hats right now. I am the Futurist-in-Residence at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I am a PhD student at the London School of Economics in their sociology department. And I am an affiliate at Data and Society Research Institute. And I welcome questions about these multiple affiliations after the talk. But this long list of affiliations did start somewhere. I have always been an Afrofuturist before I had the language to describe what an Afrofuturist was. I was an Afrofuturist as a kid who loved outer space. I was an Afrofuturist as a teenager who was obsessed with science fiction. And it wasn't until I was an undergrad that I found the language of Afrofuturism. And yeah, found out that there were people doing Afrofuturism in the world every single day. So I carry this Afrofuturist vein in my work by asking as often as I can how anti-Blackness reverberates in our contemporary discourse around technological progress. Reproductive justice was also part of my origin story. I'm really glad to be able to talk about this today. But my first ever job, real job in high school, was at New Voices for Reproductive Justice in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I loved that job. It changed my life. And it allowed me to bring that work into my work on technology. And so at Data and Society, I was able to produce this report where I asked how digital technologies that are meant to improve, ostensibly, the health outcomes for Black birthing people, how they might be reproducing harm. And then I'm now, as I said, the Futurist-in-Residence. And in this role, I'm pursuing answers to this question, which is how can we generate and protect and nurture a sustainable ecosystem for diverse, and when I say diverse in foundation speak, what I mean is Black, Indigenous, disabled futurisms that can thrive across the health, science, knowledge, and technology landscape. So in this short talk, I'm going to focus on this last question. When asked to sort of reflect on updating the 4 tenets of reproductive justice, I was drawn to bodily autonomy. And so I wonder, when technology attempts to define and control and read and interpret our bodies, how can we make ourselves whole again? So this task of revisiting bodily autonomy and updating its terms comes at a time when bodily autonomy is shifting and changing. The stakes are shifting. We see technology that is fueled by advancements in artificial intelligence remaking the kinds of bodily alienation that are so familiar to those of us engaged in reproductive justice. As so many folks in this field and during these talks throughout these past few days have told us, technology carries its own sense, its own forms of sense-making and embodiment. So we've heard about various assisted reproductive technologies, artificial wombs, genetic testing, and I'll add to that activity monitors, health apps that document physical changes like menstruation, ovulation, water intake, and AI that conjures images of our bodies, of humans that are both real and imagined. And these different types of technological extensions and readings and analyses of our bodies often capture and communicate a sense of our bodies that is often hegemonic, right? And does not encapsulate all that we can be. And so as in this era of AI, as we see these technologies attempt to take control over our bodily autonomy, I see this as sort of this wide-scale effort to remove the opportunity to freely give consent, to manufacture facts through deception, and I say facts, right, through deception, and intercepting and misinterpreting and distorting and censoring information that is from and about our bodies. And so I have some examples of this here in action. There are several companies developing AI menstrual cups that will help track your flow. I have these images that were proliferating on social media, AI-generated fake images and videos of Black women as welfare queens. I have these AI chatbots that are censoring and distorting women's health information. And then I also have a recommendation here of a colleague's work describing a lot more of these types of systems in action. All right, so let me speed up here. So I see this all as sort of a crisis of trust. There is no question, right, that wrestling back our bodily autonomy from these dangerous technologies and redefining it on our own terms is a reproductive justice imperative. And as Octavia Butler reminds us, there are at least 1,000 answers about what comes next. And so my answer for us today is to reclaim a Black feminist sense of trust in and through our bodies. And we know that trust is a concept that has been weaponized against Black people in pursuit of healthcare. We have been told time and time again to forget past injustices, to ignore symptoms in the present, and to place our trust in medicine and in health institutions despite their continued violence. And so rather than demanding that trust be located in these institutions, Black feminism provides us the lanes for us to decide where else we can nurture trusting relationships. And so my colleagues and I explored some of these questions in an anthology called Trust Issues, where we engaged trust as an institution, as information, as relationality. And today what I want to bring you all today is trust as embodiment. And so as a part of writing this essay, we were asked to develop a new terminology of trust, and that's what I'm going to present and leave you all with here today. So combining a lot of theories, again, that I mentioned earlier, we arrived at embodily trust. And I won't read the definitions because they're up here. I don't have a lot of time left. But what embodily trust asks us to do is to take a deep breath, turn inwards in search of grounding truths, and to exhale and expand outwards to share what we learn. It asserts that the body itself is a technology that conveys information through somatic sensations, and that it is time that we listen to our bodies. And so where the apex predators say that the body is an object to be controlled and digitized and optimized, we say the body is always arriving. Where the broligarchs say that AI can perform better than humans and therefore we should trust it with our health and other types of institutions, we say, I feel, therefore I can be free. And so I will end in my last 10 seconds. Thank you. I just wanted to list the places that I heard this concept and bodily trust evoked throughout the past few days. We heard it and we felt it every time that we were welcomed into song and dance together, when we were asked to pause and take deep breaths together. We heard it and felt it every time that Audre Lorde's uses of the erotic was evoked in this space. We heard it when we were asked to expand our awareness into our interior worlds and to listen to our dreams. We heard it when we were reminded of the importance of examining our bodies, of knowing ourselves intimately, with curiosity and without fear. We heard it when we were told to remember that the womb is and was our first home, and that the future feels like home. We engaged with embodily trust when Moya Byllye told us to move at the speed of trust. And so, yeah, I feel that embodily trust sort of allows us to welcome the liberation that comes with not knowing what the future will hold, while knowing that we have intuition and instincts and each other. Thank you. Please contact me. Send me an email.
Thank you so much. I love and appreciate you tracking all the things that people have said and the ways that we have been using embodily trust. And so next we will have Dázon in her presentation. Okay.
All right, are we good? Yeah. Hey, everybody, good morning, good morning. And I, too, am grateful. Thank you again, especially for Loretta and Jallicia, and for all of you for being here, for the time we've had together, and for the times to come. I'm grateful for that as well. So, as you saw in the program, I titled this conversation from Whence We Came, We All Must Go, Somehow. And I want to start, especially for the younger activist scholars in the room, just as a little reminder for my own story. Yeah, so my origin story, and when I think back, it was June. It was hot. It was summertime in Atlanta, 1983. My little work-study job at Spelman College had me touring a prospective family on campus. And I look up, while I'm touring this beautiful family of a student that we want to come to the Spelman, and I see Angela Davis and June Jordan walking on. And then I see Paula Giddings, and I see all of Sweet Honey in the Rock, and I can name a whole lot of other names. And I was like, wait, what? And I dropped that family. And I followed those sisters to Giles Hall, for those of you who know my campus. And hence, I played hooky for the rest of the week because that was the week of the very first ever National Conference on Black Women's Health in this country, as hosted by Byllye Avery and what became the National Black Women's Health Project, Black Women's Health Imperative. That was where my journey began, and while I am deeply rooted in Sankofa, I ain't looked back, right? I have been moving forward ever since, into and towards sexual and reproductive liberation ever since. I was 18. I'll be 60 in 3 weeks. The other part that was so important about that work is that before we had intersectionality, it taught me intersectionality. Because all the stories and all the women in the rooms and the way we told the stories also represented. So I turned intersectionality into a verb. And that it becomes the not just what we look at and how we talk about it, but what we do and how we do it. And so that's how HIV became a part of reproductive justice for me and for so many others. And big ups and call in our sister, she's been called in already, Juanita Williams. So then the thing for me, though, is when we were doing this work at the beginning of it, the only places where I could truly find where the intersections were already at work were not in the US, it was other places. It was especially in Africa, where they were already trying to figure out the intersection of sexual health and reproductive health and rights at the same time. And the only way we could get to that is all of those big old conferences. And I won't go into the 1985 Nairobi conference where my white feminist boss, because Byllye didn't ask her to go, wouldn't let me go. But what I've come to, just to skip forward for a long time, and Loretta referenced it the other day, I am deeply curious and very much committed to making sure that every freaking human being remembers that they came from a Black woman. And so whether they need to learn it from what is the Eve gene to what you feel in what I'm now calling your soul cells, which is your blood, because we're in it and you're of it. And that I deeply believe that until we, one, embrace that, and then two, make sure that that embracing is bridging us across this planet to do what needs to happen, and with and using the reproductive justice framework, we're not gonna move too far. So I came up with this notion of shepatriation. And shepatriation essentially is not the same context or the sentiment of the Back to Africa movement. That's not what I'm talking about, but it is an element. And that it is not just a means to escape anti-Black racism or seek cultural belonging or contribute to development, but it is about bringing Afrofuturism and bringing the diaspora, which is the sixth region of the continent. We have a place in the African Union, back to ourselves and to each other. And that it ain't gonna just be Black. That's for sure, because it's in all of our blood. So last year, someone offered up an alternate, because I have patriation in the word, but repatriation is a thing. It is the physical return to the land. A Native sister who was with us last year raised an alternative language for us and said we should consider rematriation. And I love that. And so I went back and looked and studied, and I learned that, and I'm gonna tell y'all this, all of my concepts I'm still working on because I haven't had time to do the deep scholarly work that y'all have. But when looking at rematriation, it has its own work. It has its own definition. It has its own place. And I'm looking for it right now. But it says, rematriation is indigenous women-led work to restore sacred relationships between indigenous people and their ancestral land, honoring their matrilineal societies and in opposition of patriarchal violence and dynamics. That's according to the Sogorea Land Trust. So rematriation is about returning a land to its people. Shepatriation is about returning a people to its land. So that's where I want to bridge the concept of what I'm talking about. So in terms of the fifth tenet of reproductive justice, I love trust and the embodily. I also think that the fifth tenet to reproductive justice is solidarity. It's about the right to live, grow, and build in our communities in solidarity with our common embracing of how we connect with all of our African ancestry and our African posterity. So I'll give you a couple of examples. What I got, 30 seconds? Thank you. I'll give you a couple of examples of outside of my work at SisterLove, which HIV in and of itself drives us towards needing that solidarity across all the lived experiences of people who are most vulnerable to that epidemic, and all the intersections that it brings, socially, culturally, politically, economically, geographically, all the things that it brings together already require some level of solidarity that we have yet to achieve because they have not yet centered Black women in that epidemic, which is why they're not going to get to the end of it until they do. But I'm a part of 3 different WhatsApp groups, and we keep growing because we keep finding new intersections with ourselves. One is a Global Diaspora Connect, which is rooted wherever people are sitting. So these are mostly expatriates, or there's even a debate of whether we're expats or immigrants, right? That's going on right now for Black people who have returned and are living on the continent. But Black Diaspora Connect is men, women, and all identities of people who are bringing together sort of a social and cultural community deeply connected to South Africa in the group that I'm in through our residency or our expatriation, immigration, long stay or long-standing relationships. There's another group that had to break out of that, which is Sisters in SA. And now we have a new group that is not rooted in SA, but it is rooted in bringing together what global wealth for people of African descent looks like. And so it's the Global Wealth Lab. It is phenomenal. It's a book club online right now. But I raise these because, for example, Sisters in SA is not just a place where we're going into the politics or the politics and all of the tangible things about living in South Africa and how that fits within the world and the geopolitical space. But it's also a place where somebody moves and says, does anybody know a good gynecologist in Rosebank? And does anybody know where I can get sister locks done? And I'm looking for a school where my kid can learn. I mean, it's that supportive. It is a supportive environment that also digs deep into our realities of how we move on this planet and how we're being together. So I'm looking at that experience and how that little microcosm of solidarity is not just developing a space for people to feel welcome and to feel belonging, but that it is also a space where it is meant to build something with people on the continent. It's not that group like the folks who are building their own African-American community in Ghana. That's not what this is. There's another story, and I told Loretta wanted to make sure, and I did the literary research because I didn't talk to a bunch of people. But I landed on, okay, human rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and where we go with that. Sankofa sent me back, and there is not a document, but there is a constitution that exists. It's about 13th century, called the Kukuran Fuga. I see nodding heads. It's also the Mandan Charter. It is, by all intents and purposes, the original constitution on the planet. It is rooted in what we now know as human rights. It has some tenets that are specific to how you treat women, include women. It's still antiquated, so it's still got some of that other patriarchal stuff in it because they can't help themselves. But again, the origins of where we come and where we must go still come from there. Where I'm going to close, thank you for that, is if I looked at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, solidarity is written in it. It's in a few of the articles, even if it's not in language. But in the third generation of human rights, there actually is a draft declaration for bridging solidarity into the human rights framework. I'm not here to argue that we need to look to or hang our future on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We'll be waiting till the 25th century. And so what I am arguing, though, is that instead of considering how we build and work a universal declaration of human rights to embrace and bring us solidarity as a human right, what we do is we bring solidarity as a human right into the reproductive justice framework, because we're going to need structure around how we make reproductive justice work and how it lives. Two things I'll remind you on. One is right now, the continent of Africa is about the population of the continent is about 18% of all people on the planet. And the median age right now is about 19, right? Yeah. And it is the fastest growing population on the planet. While everyone else is growing older, including Africa, we still have the youngest people who are growing older. So by mid-century, 25% of humanity will be African, and the median age will be 25. That's where a lot of people in this room are now. So when we talk about Afrofuturism and reproductive justice, center that in our minds, right? Because by the end of this century, Africa will be about 38% of humanity, and the median age won't be much more than 30. So I want you to think about this. On one of our global wealth calls, one of our sisters asked, she sees young people wearing these t-shirts. We all do it. There's that one that says, "I am my ancestors' wildest dreams." She posed, "How do you know?" How do you know? And so my question is, because this is what Loretta started us with on Wednesday, Tuesday, last week, I don't know. My question is, what are your wildest dreams for your posterity, and how will they know?
Give it up for Triple D. Okay. I am all for a fifth tenet of RJ. I don't know if we need a vote. I don't know how this works, but I'm all for it. Next, we will have a presentation from Regina Davis-Moss. Dr. Moss, take it away.
Yes. Good morning to everyone, and always a pleasure to be surrounded by such brilliance. I was charged with talking about policy. I'm the policy nerd in the room.
Hey.
And, you know, as I'm grounding this talk, I was just reflecting on the conversation I was having with Byllye, where she was like, when I come to these conferences, they scare the shit out of me, right? So I'm gonna do a little more of that for a second. So we're grounding in Sankofa, right? And so when we talk about Sankofa, going back to retrieve what we forgot, I want to underscore we are not reaching back out of nostalgia. We are reaching back because the future is under attack. Reproductive justice was never a set of policy demands. It is and remains a Black feminist analysis of power, survival, and self-determination. And in this moment, after Dobbs, amidst the resurgence of authoritarian governance, racialized surveillance, increased criminalization, disinformation, we are being asked to imagine futures while standing in the wreckage of stolen past. So today I want to speak to you about reproductive justice through what futures we are imagining, what legacies we must reclaim, how the policy process has been distorted, and why narrative power is central to how these futures are possible for us all. So I would say, I'm not going to say that's the fifth tenet, because that, you know, we've always known about narrative power, but I would say it's a deepening of the need for narrative power. The future we are imagining is not simply one where protections are patched back together. It's not just about let's get through this. We are imagining a future where reproductive autonomy is inseparable from racial justice, economic security, environmental safety, bodily integrity, and more. And where Black women, Indigenous people, immigrants, queer and trans people are not framed as vulnerable populations, but as authors of policy imagination. A reproductive justice future where abortion is accessible because people have the material conditions, parenting is safe because communities are resourced, Healthcare is trusted because it is accountable. And democracy is strong enough to protect bodily autonomy. But futures don't emerge from policy text alone. The policy nerds in here know this, right? They become believable or impossible because of story. Sankofa demands that we name what we have already built. Reproductive justice emerged because Black women understood laws and policies never fully protected us, and that survival required something more expansive than rights-based frameworks. We inherit this movement because our ancestors understood that storytelling was survival, and they did that through testifying, documenting, whispering, screaming, and warning. And the communities that built informal systems of care are what we did because they knew that states had failed or harmed us. But we also inherited some cautionary tales, right? We inherited that policy wins without narrative grounding are fragile. Rights only on paper or in law, but that are not widely respected, accepted, or supported, can be taken away quickly. And when Black women's experiences are erased or distorted, harmful narratives rush in to fill that vacuum. Now, the Trump era did not invent this information, but they did accelerate it, and they did normalize it, and they asserted it wildly and vigorously. It has been the reason why they have reshaped reproductive justice policy, not only through the courts and executive actions, but also through what I'm calling narrative infrastructure. And there's a whole body of research on this. And that is what's making these harmful narratives feel legitimate. Disinformation has become like a governing strategy at this point. Anti-Black, anti-gender, anti-abortion narratives have become normalized through state policy and power. Policy debates are increasingly being reframed. You're hearing things like parents' rights, fetal personhood, and religious liberty, while bodily autonomy is being cast as deviant, illegitimate, or dangerous. As a result, the terrain of reproductive justice policy has fundamentally shifted. The traditional legislative processes have been weakened. Courts are becoming the primary battleground for reproductive policies. So after Dobbs, federal agencies, executive orders are being used to expand our reproductive care. I'm a public health person, so we just look at our secretary right now, right? State legislators are producing rapid, ideologically driven legislation. Movement strategy can no longer rely primarily on federal legislation to win. States have become the primary site of reproductive governance. Access to care, criminal penalties, and protections now depend on your zip code. States now control abortion access, criminal penalties, and care infrastructure. Interstate conflicts are emerging around shield laws, travel, telemedicine. Policy strategy now has to be multi-level. It has to be federal, state, and local. And it has to be because we are forming cross-state alliances. Criminalization has expanded beyond abortion itself, right? Pregnancy outcomes, self-managed abortion, people who support care are increasingly subject to investigation and prosecution. Reproductive justice policy must now include criminal legal reform and digital privacy protections. Healthcare infrastructure has become a frontline policy battleground. It's not just about dismantling abortion access anymore. Medicaid, Title X, telehealth, and provider protections now determine whether you can actually access care now. Narrative warfare now shapes policy legitimacy. Cultural and ideology frames influence which policies are now seen as acceptable or extreme rather than evidence grounding debates. We're no longer talking, one only has to turn on the news to see. Digital surveillance has become a reproductive justice frontier. We've already spent a lot of talking about that, so I won't go there. Climate change, reproductive justice issue. We've always said this, but even more so. Environmental exposures, extreme heat, displacement is definitely affecting pregnancy outcomes and access to care. And of course, defending democracy is a reproductive justice issue. So voter suppression and attacks on the Voting Rights Act. Let's just sit with that, right? Policy is downstream from narrative power. The stories a society believes determines the policies it will tolerate. The stories a society believes determines the policies it will tolerate. Courts do not operate in a vacuum. Legislators respond to stories that feel culturally legitimate. A movement that loses ground is one when our narratives are reactive, fragmented, or overly technocratic. This is why narrative power, which is the long-term ability to drive the stories that define public imagination, is not adjacent to policy, it is foundational to our future. If we do not shape the stories that define whose lives matters, policy will be a site of extraction and punishment rather than liberation. Our work has to focus on building narrative infrastructure that centers Black women as credible narratives of policy impact, supporting advocates to move from defensive messaging to future-oriented storytelling, and interrupting dominant frames that position reproductive justice as niche, radical, or divisive. Policy futures require storytellers who understand policy, policy advocates who understand narrative, and movements that invest in long-term cultural strategy, not just rapid response. But that's how the right is winning. So this Sankofa in Action, which was loosely the title of my talk, is requiring retrieving the wisdom that movements have always known, and that is that culture absolutely precedes change, and applying it with intention, strategy, and scale. The challenge before us is clear. Authoritarian movements understand narrative power deeply, and they are well-funded, coordinated, and patient. But the opportunity is also clear. Reproductive justice offers one of the most comprehensive moral visions for the future of democracy that we have. If we anchor policy in lived experience, if we reclaim storytelling as a site of power, and if we refuse to separate imagination from governance, then the future we are imagining is not aspirational. It actually is achievable. The future we are imagining is not simply harm reduction, it is joy, safety, and self-determination as public policy. So Sankofa reminds us that the future is not only forward-looking, it is built by reclaiming our movement wisdom and remembering who we have always been. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I speak for a lot of folks in this room that we might need a little breath after taking in all these scary but necessary facts and information. So I encourage everyone to take a breath in and out, and one more in. And my timer says out. I will say, as a child of immigrants, it took me a while. I was on the Loretta path for a while of no, how do you say it, Loretta? Mushi, mojo, woo woo? Okay, woo woo. Thank you, Dázon. But now I think I've moved on to Dázon's side. And yeah.
You are welcome.
I might be on the bridge. Okay.
Emily said she may not be woo-woo, she's woo.
Woo! I like that. We're all woo for the day. And next we're gonna give the time to, I will say, the Byllye Avery, because I think that is necessary. So whenever you're ready, please.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to use 2 of my minutes for something. You all might have done this already, but twice won't hurt. We need to validate Loretta. We need to say, we appreciate you. We appreciate your tenacity. We appreciate that big, beautiful, big brain you got up in your head. And your ability to be a strategic thinker. And your ability to look this stuff right in the face. And, I'm a chicken. I'm quaking in my boots. And Loretta down here having this scary conference that I got to go to. It scares me to death, but it doesn't stop me. But I just want to take a minute to say, we have to recognize the leaders. We have to validate them because so much goes on that you don't even see to make things happen. Laying in the bed late at night wondering how you going to make payroll. Laying in the bed wondering if this grant going to come through. Laying in the bed, you don't see that. What you see is you come and boom, it's all happening. And I'm saying for the leaders in the room, I'm looking at Lynn, I'm looking at you, I'm looking at Dázon. There are a lot of leaders here whose heads are bloody. I'm going to tell you, because I know the good, the bad, the ugly. And I'm saying take a moment to say thank you. We appreciate you. Okay, as I listen to you all brilliant scholars talk about all this bad stuff that's going on, my idea is the only way that we can win this thing is we have to take a lesson from the right. The thing, they started going crazy after Barack Obama got elected twice, but they had already started going crazy earlier, because I remember about 25 years ago, I was speaking in Oklahoma City, and, I was giving my regular spiel, and, the part of the talk that I usually say about if you raise the people up from the bottom, you raise up everybody. This OB-GYN came up to me and told me that being liberal was passé. And I kind of didn't pay him any attention, but I realized they had already started that conversation. So what I'm saying to you, this thing didn't just come overnight. And what we have to undo every single thing that they put in place. And Loretta, I know you have editorial thing, but this whole government, this whole thing has to be overturned. We have to take all of that power, and what they fear the most is us having power. Okay? So we got to get in the powerful positions. That means from the president to the Supreme Court, to the judicial bodies, to every piece of it. So that when we get in power, we can fire all the federal workers. Bring in our people. So that's the way we got to look at this, because reproductive justice is one part of it. It's not the whole thing. And we got all those things that Regina was talking about, climate change, all environment, to all that stuff. We have to have a giant, what I call a stealth worldwide coalition of all of these groups need to come together in order to get the massive, massive change. And once you get somebody in office that can make sense, people kind of fall in line, just like they falling out of line now. You know how conservative people can be, how they can cave so quickly, well, they can flip back over. There are a lot of people out there who are ready to be called over, bring them in. There are a lot of people out there who are upset about what's going on as much as we are, and they suffering, going through it silently, or either ignoring the news or ignoring the reality, and they need to be touched, okay? So that's the big work. That's the only way we're going to do this. We can't piecemeal this. We can't just make reproductive justice okay. and everything else is falling apart because all of reproductive justice depends on everything working. Okay? So that's the outside of our reproductive justice movement work that has to happen. And that needs to be worldwide because fascism is taking over the whole world. You know, you can be anywhere and they can talk about it, okay? So now inside our movement, we have to first mobilize the grassroots. And so I say to my esteemed, very brilliant academics, all those theories and everything y'all explain, I'm sitting up there thinking about how can I talk this to the folks I want to reach? How can I talk to Miss Sally? How can I make this relevant in her life? How can I go and sit with her and talk about it? So you got to make it so that we can use it. It's not enough to know it and to have it. It's all that's good. That's the first stage. The second stage, how do we operationalize whatever it is you're talking about so that regular people can understand it and hear it, okay? That is the piece of work that's hard, okay? Second, when I say go to the grassroots, I mean go and work across class lines. We got to work with everybody. And my theory is if you do the analysis, what the man said was passé, you do the analysis of the woman who is struggling the most, the people who have the greatest pain, they have the answers because they live with that pain and that struggle day in and day out. They know what they need to get rid of that burden. You have to go and ask them. Don't go in thinking you know, because you don't know nothing. Only you know about your life and what's happening with you, but you don't know what's happening with them. So we have to really work across class lines. It ain't real if all the sisters are not in the room. Now, I'm giving you this pearl. I didn't go into the Black Women's Health Conference knowing this. I got this because Billie Jean Young came to me and sat down and told me, this is what you need to do. You need to be including rural women. You need to be including poor women. I'm thinking, oh, God, I don't even know what I'm doing, let alone trying to go and include somebody, but I got the point. And I marched my butt right over to the Carver Homes, McDaniel Glenn sat in the back of the room at the Tenets Association meeting, and they let you come last, so you have to sit through the whole meeting, and then they finally said, well, what you want? And that was the way I learned the importance of it. I learned it the hard way. I was scared, yeah. I was scared, but you soon get over that because people know who's there to help them and who's not. So let me move on because I know my time will be up in a minute. You have to protect the story. Always tell the story. Learn it so that you can start with the story. Movements lose when you lose the story. How did you get from point A to point B? You didn't just pop up, you know. It all started somewhere. So be sure and tell the story. We have to build intergenerational leadership. And we old ones got to be willing to be patient enough to mentor the new ones. And y'all got to be patient with us. And we, you know, I worry about people being so dependent on digital. And after seeing that AI thing yesterday, it's like, whoa. Have y'all seen 2001, A Space Odyssey? If you haven't, go look at that movie. That's right. And you will understand, no, Dave, I cannot open that door for you. You know, you will understand how scary it is. You know, and I fight with Ngina because Ngina hates the internet. And she doesn't put nothing on the internet. And so and we struggle with that, but I can kind of understand. You all can't put all your business on the internet because You know, we were trying to talk about how do you help women in Texas who go and have abortions and want to come back. You know, they're alone, and how can they get some support? And one of the sisters said, oh, well, we can develop a website that they can go to. Yeah, well, everybody in the world can go to that website. So it's that kind of website kind of thinking. You got to have some paper and pencil somewhere. So you do both of them, is what I'm saying. There are other ways to have community. I also love what the sister said about our community is digital. Yeah, it is. But some of them digital people, you need to see them. We are humans. We feel. I want to touch somebody. I don't always want to look at Regina on a little bitty screen. I want to know what color is her eyes. I want to know when she's smiling real. I want to, you know, the things that you can't read, you can't see everything. Okay. Follow the money. Fund the grassroots. Fund black women-led organization. We need the money, y'all. We're on all the bad of this. You know, if you got, you know, we said to somebody, we're going to change our name. We the Black Women's Health Imperative. Okay, so what are they targeting? Health, women, black women. You see what I'm saying? So some of us can't change our spots, and we don't need to, and we're not changing. But fund us. Refuse the criminalization of pregnancy and all the things that Paltrow them write about and talk about. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is center joy. Joy is absolutely necessary, and it's not a distraction from justice, it's a strategy. For decades, we have organized while we were grieving, when we built institutions while we were feeling lost. We've shown up even when we're tired, okay? But burnout, I call it burn up, is not a badge of honor, you know. The future of reproductive justice must have healing spaces, retreats, laughter, music, and rest. Because movements require you to restore your body. You can't just give and give and give and give and give, and you're not going to do anything. So let me leave you with this. Reproductive justice in the future will not be defined by a single policy win. So y'all get active in the local, encourage people to join the school committees, the library committees, because these people are trying to change everything. You never thought a library, anybody who cared about a library, people ain't half reading books, and they want to ban them. But that's helpful too, because then everybody don't want to read the banned books. But, you know, but we need to be in those spaces. It will be measured by something more profound. A grandmother watching her daughter give birth without fear. A queer parent walking into a clinic and being called by the right name. A midwife's hands being respected. A paycheck that lasts. Hallelujah. Children playing in neighborhoods free of toxin and terror. Policies shaped not by panic, which is what these white men are doing now, but by love. We're not only defending rights, we're building conditions for dignity. And history tells us something powerful. Every major shift toward justice has happened because ordinary people organized and did extraordinary things, okay? Okay, reproductive justice is not a dream deferred. It's a promise unfinished. And time is asking us, listen more deeply, organize more boldly, love more radically, and to imagine a future large enough to hold us all. I thank you.
Wow. That's all I got. Just wow. Thank you so much for the wisdom And now I'm going to bring to the stage or give the stage over to somebody who is in the fight with us in and out of the academy. So please welcome Dr. Deirdre Cooper Owens.
That moment reminded me of Baby Suggs' sermon in Beloved, where she said, "Mothers, you must cry for the living." And that's what we did. So thank you for being the conduit. Thank you. I am so grateful to be here. Don't start my 8 minutes because I'm Southern, so I got to do all the greetings. Right. All right. I'm so happy to be here and to be amongst all of you, to the organizers. I'm in the perimenopausal phase of life, so I don't want to call out names because I'll forget. But to all of the organizers, to those who have prepared our food, who've cleaned these spaces, who've allowed our voices to be heard, to be seen, thank you. To those who are gathered in the seats, thank you so very much. I'm going to move it up. All right, so now you all can start the 8 minutes. So I'm Deirdre Cooper Owens, and I've been doing reproductive justice work for 15 years, and I actually started out doing reproductive rights work because I didn't even know what reproductive justice was, and then found out. But I'm also, my bread and butter is, I'm a professor, and I study and write about the 19th century United States, slavery, I center Black women's lives, and I talk about the history of medicine, and I use medicine as a lens. But this is a wonderful opportunity because I was asked to think about Sankofa as a guiding principle and framework for how to think about reproductive futures. And so the title of my talk is From Mumbet to Reproductive Justice, Understanding Sankofa and Liberation. Let's see, where's this clicker? Okay. So this is a picture of a woman whose name changed. She was known as Mumbet. And as I started to think about history and our ancestors, I thought about the right to bodily autonomy, one of the pillars of reproductive justice. And in 1780, Mumbet heard the Massachusetts Declaration of Sentiments, or their Declaration of Independence, when Massachusetts was still a British colony. And she heard that all men were created equal and should be free. And so Mumbet knew that anyone who had a right to her body outside of herself was breaking a law. And so she said, anytime while I was a slave, if 1 minute's freedom had been offered to me and I had been told I must die at the end of that minute, I would have taken it just to stand 1 minute on God's earth. A free woman, I would. And so although her slave name was Mumbet, in freedom, because she owned her body and her identity, she renamed herself Elizabeth Freeman.
All right.
And after working for 20 years, she worked as a domestic, but she was a prominent healer, a midwife, and a nurse. And she believed in the right to parent in safe and healthy environments. And this right was actualized in 1801, when she was able, after 20 years of working and saving money, to buy a home for her children in Cherry Hill, right here in Western Massachusetts, right near Stockbridge. And so here we have a blueprint of those who lived before us, who were embodying and modeling for us the pillars of reproductive justice, even before the term had been coined in 1994. Now, I know there are a lot of Afro-pessimists. I'm not one of them. I don't believe in Black nihilism. I'm so, yes, that's the academic shade. I don't believe in Black nihilism because outside of the archives representing all manner of things, epistemological violence and all of the things, and I am not in any way diminishing that, but it also is an archives that's filled with creativity and possibility. There's a womb archives that is held outside of library spaces and special collections. And when Black people liberated themselves both physically and mentally from bondage, they existed in the realm of fugitivity. Fugitivity is a thing that the archives is not going to ever be able to grasp. Fugitivity is a word that meant that the person was in the act of, they were in the process of. And the wonderful thing about words like fugitivity is that, or anything that ends with ing, it is always continuous. It's a process. It cannot be contained. It is expansive. It's multi-pronged. It's bound up with creativity. Even Catherine McKittrick said that the archives was a vessel of creativity, right? And so for enslaved people, freedom dreams meant breaking unjust laws. Fugitivity meant being future-focused at all times. And so there are two women outside of Elizabeth Freeman, but the second one is Harriet Tubman. So I have a bit of a girl crush on her. My husband understands. He doesn't judge me. She's my next book project. But the thing about Harriet Tubman, and I'm investigating her life as someone who had disabilities, but also I think about her because she lived such a long life. She died at 91 years old. And as I was thinking about her life, I thought Harriet Tubman also embodied the last two pillars of reproductive justice. The right to not have children when she was enslaved. I think people forget she ran away. She liberated herself in her 20s. She had a husband. That is the prime time for a 19th century antebellum era enslaved woman to have children with the man that she loved. And yet she didn't. Now there are some biographers who have claimed that she did, but Harriet Tubman also was not formally educated, so she didn't leave letters. So I have to just go on what she gave us and what she presented to us. And what I do know is that when she married her second husband, Nelson Davis, who's pictured here, they adopted a little girl, Gertie Davis, when Harriet Tubman was in her 50s. And so she decided to choose again, because that's what freedom allows you to do. And she decided the right to have children. So the other beautiful thing, right, when I'm thinking about Sankofa and reproductive justice futures, to think about the roles of midwives and healers in our history. So women like Elizabeth Freeman or Harriet Tubman, who served as a healer, a spy, a scout, a nurse, right? And so here are these people who are healers, and yet they are also, I think, wonderful examples for serving as templates for Afrofuturism. It's a framing that anchors all of us gathered here in the name of reproductive justice, futurisms, and freedom, right? So sometimes I often tell my students, because they think that all the answers are contained with young people, and I so agree with you when I always talk about intergenerational collaboration. Because what I do know as a historian of medicine is a lot of people's brains don't stop growing until they're in their 20s. I mean, that's just a physiological fact, right? And so that doesn't mean that I don't trust young people's opinion, but there's nothing wrong with mentorship and guidance. And if we also understand the ways that our ancestors lived, apprenticeships were quite normal, right? And so there was a need for intergenerational collaboration. If you just look at the panel, this is one of the first panels that I have been on where there are people who are younger than me, I'm 53, and in the Black South, we call them a little seasoned, a little older than me, right? And the fact that this was so intentional, right? That there are people from their 20s and possibly 70s up. This is the first time I've sat on a panel like this. And so I think that this is important, that they're drawing on something that is cultural and ancestral and can serve as a model. Now I'm gonna tell you what Sankofa is not. This is me being shady once again. I did a podcast last week with a dear sister friend who's working in Jamaica as a researcher and a professor, and we were supposed to have a conversation about Project 2026. So I go on the website. This is a screenshot. Because I am perimenopausal, I was up last night at 4 something trying to finish this presentation. So I just took a screenshot, right? And quite literally, you can see from Project 2026 that saving America by saving the family. And let me just read what they wrote. On July 4th, 2026, Americans will remember how the founding fathers won their freedom and established ordered liberty through a system of limited government, federalism, and the rule of law. In understanding their crowning achievements, Americans must recognize that the founding fathers were quite literally fathers. 54 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence married and had a total of 337 children, among them an average of 6 each. So they are literally pulling on biblical language. Remember in the Bible, now I'm a Buddhist, so I haven't been a Christian in a long time, but I do remember so-and-so begat this person who begat that person who begat this person. So these are the tenets of white Christian nationalism. And this is the interesting thing, because I was sharing with my girlfriend, I said, look at the family who they have on the opening page of the website. But it's a stock image. You know, these happy black people didn't pose for them, right? It's a stock image. This is the interesting thing, though. The first time that they mention black people, it is a Moynihan report to literally talk about how black women circumvented the natural order of the family. So this is what we don't want to do. Sankofa is so much more expansive than that, right? Because Sankofa, as a method that we can practice, it becomes a liberation guide. And this is the really wonderful thing about history. Trust me, no historian is trying to hide it. We want people to know, but can I call you Miss Byllye? Because I'm from the South. Okay, so like Miss Byllye said, right? I'm from the South. Like Miss Byllye said, though, sometimes we have to write in languages to keep our jobs. But when we speak to regular folk, I have to let them know that no matter what the academic jargon is, you can just email me. Go to the internet for good, right? You can find all sorts of things. It blew my mind when I had to teach the history of American medicine. And I found out that the first site of healing in colonized land was created by an African-born woman in 1497. That's 5 years after Columbus invaded the Americas. And it was described, right? A letter from the Seville archives, right, in Spain. An archbishop in Santo Domingo responded to a letter he had received from King Carlos II, and the archbishop described a hut where a black woman, quote, took in the sick people and attempted to heal them or cure them. The woman was described as pious and poor, and the archbishop wrote that before she opened her hut, there were no hospitals in Santo Domingo. The ruins that you see now, San Nicolas of Bari Hospital was erected where her healing hut had been established before. So here was this poor but pious African-born woman who decided to heal people. So when we return to go fetch it, I'm going to fetch information to help us continue to etch out the blueprint for liberation. Now, the question, we were asked a number of questions, and I was just imagining, right? And I thought creating institutions of healing is ancestral, and we need to know that. I think most of us in this room know that, if not all of us. Care is communal. And we had a wonderful conversation around what care meant. And it is a fraught term. Remember I said I studied slavery and the history of medicine. And I'm constantly reading archival documents about the care of these slaves, the care of the darkies. And so the care is always in air quotes for me. Right? Because it really was a form of social control. It wasn't a care out of compassion. It was a care about how to produce a better product, right? Known as movable property or chattel, so that they could continue to work in this economic labor system. But care is actually communal when we think about this woman whose name we don't know, right? Who created a place for healing in a colonized land. Rest is critical, right? I'm on a board of 2 reproductive justice organizations. Rest is critical. Every time we meet and we're talking together, Norbezi is on one of those boards. I don't know if she's still here today, but we're constantly talking about sabbaticals, how people need sabbaticals, right? And the sabbaticals have to be paid. It has to be communal. Cultural knowledges and practices can exist without commodification. We don't have to sell everything. Every time I give a talk about Harriet Tubman, somebody says, are you going to write a book and put down all her things? No, because she didn't share it all. In fact, the only reason why I know certain things is because I had to go to her archives to figure it out. So when she talked about, I gave them wild geranium root as a bitter tonic, I don't know what that meant. I'm not a herbalist. So I had to go to the 19th century medical book to figure it out, right? And to figure out where it grew. And to understand that she got that knowledge when she sustained the traumatic brain injury as a child, and her Ashanti-born grandmother and mother helped heal her. And so she knew enough to keep it sacred knowledge. Everything doesn't have to be commodified. Our theory making is expansive and it's liberatory. The very fact that we have a term called reproductive justice, right, is theory and practice. And then we must be divested from funders who demand that we apply metrics to quantify things like joy. I remember sitting in a room like, how you quantify Black joy? Like, I understand job satisfaction, right? I understand those kinds of things, but how do you actually quantify joy? That's what it is. They make it impossible. Because how do you quantify your thing? It's already stacked against you. And so I'll leave us with, since I don't want to go over my 8 minutes, the imagination of our greatest thinkers. Toni K. Bambara, the late Toni K. Bambara, and the late Octavia Butler. And in The Salt Eaters, the first sentence says, "Are you sure, sweetheart, that you want to be well?" Being well is different than being healthy. And it's something that we have to be intentional about and self-reflective about. Yes. And that Octavia Butler, who I say she's an author, but she was really a philosopher who wrote novels in my mind. That's how I always think about her. And I often end my talks with this line that appeared in the parable of the sowers. There's nothing new under the sun, but we can create new suns. Yeah. We can create new suns. And to quote the artist Alicia Wormsley, there are Black people in the future. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Owens. We are going to keep it going and move to our next presenter, Dr. Brittany Cooper.
So first, I just want to give honor to Professor Loretta Ross, because when she tells me to do things, I do them because I was raised right. And I was mortified last night when the brilliant Dr. Jallicia classed me among Professor Ross and Professor Dr. Avery and Professor Dr. Diallo. Baby, not yet. I aspire. But I am very thankful for the shoulders on which I stand and the steady ground on which I stand. And because sometimes in other parts of my life I moonlight as a preacher, before I begin my remarks, I just want to say that I know that it looks like they've taken everything. I know it looks like that, but see, it doesn't look like that to me because I'm looking at this room. And so I know that just based on the brilliance in this room, just based on the brain trust in this room, just based on the commitment in this room, just based on the history in this room, the experience in this room, the willpower in this room, they have not taken everything. Do not fall for the lie. They have not won. They will not win. We will be in the future. They will be defeated. They already are. It does not matter what it looks like. And I am summoning, we keep telling everybody, remember the community. I was raised by a bunch of rural country women. I'm a rural country girl at heart. Right. And I watch people get up every day and fight for futures that they could not see. And I watched my mama say, baby, sometimes I did not know if this would ever change, but I just kept getting up and trying again. And that is why my great-grandmother, who I had the pleasure to know, who could not read and signed her signature with an X, in 3 generations, she's got a PhD at 28. That's because people did not let what it looked like as poor women in rural Louisiana determine what it could be. And so when you say tell the story, Professor Avery, what I hear, I am reclaiming the story, and I'm saying they have not won. They will not win, because we have the ancestral knowledge of what it means to get up every day and fight unrelentingly for possibility. That is the only thing we know. That is why we are here in this room. We have won. We will win. It does not matter what it looks like. Do not let the lie fool you. In 2016, I gave a TED Talk called The Racial Politics of Time, in which I argued that one of the ways that white supremacy works is through the racialization or the racialized co-optation of temporal ideas. For example, time, history, progress. White people think they own the meanings of these words. Since then, I have been very slowly writing a book about this, in which I think what I'm trying to do is put forward a Black feminist theory of time. And this comes from recognizing that every major system of domination with which Black feminists are concerned, namely white supremacy, heteropatriarchy, and capitalism, all work by co-opting temporal frames. So, for example, if white supremacy does it by suggesting that Black people are people without histories, or people incapable of progress, and thus people without futures, and if capitalism does it by installing as a core feature of daily living the idea that time is money. You do know we didn't always talk about time as money, right? Sometimes time was just a thing that passed. Time was just a cycle. But under capitalism, time becomes money. Then patriarchy does it by controlling the most embodied formulation of temporal progress that we have, i.e. reproduction. Patriarchy is fundamentally pronatalist because its logic of domination does not work if it cannot control time. And in order to control time, patriarchs and aspirational patriarchs, which so many of our brothers want to be, must control reproduction. Nationalisms work by attempting to subdue time to the needs of the nation. Note, for example, that I say this 2 days before what? Daylight savings time. Moreover, pronatalism is a core feature of a Black nationalist project that seeks to conscript Black women's bodies for the building of some romanticized nation. Most of us, self-included, are too old to remember that one of the slogans of the Black Power era, on which so much of 20th century Black feminist thinking and theorizing is inspired and responsive to, was what? It's nation time. And that sentiment held within it a core idea about what Black women's contributions to the nation were supposed to be, i.e. this is Stokely Carmichael saying the only position for a woman in the revolution is prone. So I just saw yesterday a study published in the Meteor that troublingly indicates that millennials first and Gen Zers next are over-indexing in their return to patriarchy, as indicated by a sharp upturn in their agreement with the statement, women should always obey their husbands. These men, drastically different even than boomers. These men are returning to patriarchy for many reasons, largely because based on the gains of racial justice movements on one hand and the losses of late-stage capitalism on the other, they hope that patriarchy will give them a shorter path to a kind of heterosexual manhood rooted if not in economic dominance, which they cannot seem to obtain because the tech bros are actively and aggressively locking them out of economic opportunity, then in social and reproductive dominance. Pronatalism then is not merely an attempt to conscript the bodies of birthing people, but an attempt to own time itself by controlling the femme social reproductive labor done by those bodies. And for aspirational Black manosphere broligarchs, returning Black women to the home to a state of being barefoot and pregnant is designed to buy them time. Because again, time is money. And if they can slow down our progress, then they will feel like at least they don't have to compete to both dominate us and try to catch up to the white boys. In fact, in our communities, we use a lot of words that are temporally inscribed to attend to women's bodies. First one, fast. A racially coded term for sexually precocious Black girlhood. Another, late. a term imbued with menstrual angst. And even our ideas about manhood and womanhood themselves, grown, mannish, womanish, boy, girl. Think of the way that the word girl was weaponized against black women by white people for the purposes of infantilization and disrespect. And then think yet again of how multiple generations of black women lovingly refer to each other as girl, no matter our ages, as a political counter against adultification, and as a form of temporal repair that restores black girlhoods to black women who were adultified and parentified too soon. That's why it don't quite work when white women say girl. Because they not doing the same thing that we doing when we say girl, right? And our queer fam as well have also reclaimed girl and used it gender expansively because they doing a different thing. They are reclaiming the femme and our access to the femme, and girl becomes this expansive marker of temporal repair because it is one of the places that white supremacy has attempted to control time and the general march of black people's life possibility. You better teach. Remember as well, girl, that until the language was updated in heterosexual marriage ceremonies, the last words of the officiant used to be, "I now present to you man and wife." It was in the moment of the economic and property transaction of marriage that a man became a man. It was in the moment of the economic and property transaction when a man owned a woman that he became a man. You had to have a wife to be a man. And for forever, we have tethered the move from girlhood to womanhood to the arrival of a menstrual cycle. Thankfully, a few decades of organizing, the rise of black girl studies in the academy, the rise of trans studies, and the rise of very important notions of queer time and crip time have asked us to reconsider the materiality of those kinds of temporal impositions. Does having a period really make you a woman? It has asked us to rethink what it means to be late or slow or to do things out of order. And feminism itself has been considered a threat to patriarchy precisely because it disrupts the life cycle of what women are naturally supposed to do with their bodies. Grow up, get married, have babies, and then take care of everybody else. In black communities, the insistence of this life cycle is still designed to uphold nation and race, and also wrongheadedly to counter the racist pathologization of black families, which is why it bears noting that whatever we may feel about the 2024 election and the fact that black folks in the main voted a certain way, it is true that an alarming number of black men have peeled out to vote for Trump in the last 3 elections in which he has run. I think black feminism has always had a strident critique of black nationalism precisely because it requires black women's participation in concepts like nations, markets, genders, citizenry. But it is important for us to imagine black communities that thrive beyond the demands of genders, of labor, of market, of nation. And the center and ground of that begins with the reclamation of reproduction precisely because the marked distinction of black women's uteruses is that these are the only physical spaces through which the category of unfreedom of the slave could be produced. Literally, there is no other woman that could tell that story, not even indigenous women. It is black women's uteruses that were seen as the ground of reproducing unfreedom. Thus, the ability to assert fundamental essential control over the uterus is the ground zero of a black feminist futurist freedom project, but it requires additional acknowledgement that repair itself might require us to divest from any romance we have with the maintenance of the U.S. nation state, because reproductive oppression has proceeded on the ground of using our reproductive labor as the first model for denying access to citizenship based on the color and gender of the body. Now they are attempting to do this to our brown immigrant sistren, but the playbook began with us. Zora Neale Hurston is one of my favorite theorists of black feminist time. I got 1.5 pages. Okay, thank you. Zora Neale Hurston is one of my favorite theorists of black feminist time. The opening lines of Their Eyes Were Watching God begins, "Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing until the watcher turns his eye in resignation, his dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of men. Now women, forget all those things they don't want to remember and remember everything they don't want to forget. The dream is the truth. Then they act and do things accordingly. In Hurston's Black feminist theory of time, the ship, the hold, the wake of Black Atlantic time and its upending of history cannot be the only model and set of possibilities there are. She moves us away from the trauma of the shores of the Atlantic, standing there on the shores waiting for the ship to come in or hoping for a return home or for the ship to bring us anything other than damaged human cargo, towards a different futurist possibility, one wholly determined by what and who Black women choose to remember and what and whom we choose to forget. So as we have been dreaming here together, as we have been thinking of Sankofa as practice and praxis, we must go forward with the conviction that the dream is the truth. Then we act and do things accordingly. So that's my theory today, and I want to take my last 30 seconds to tell you what praxis looks like for me. So after the new regime returned in 2025 and began disappearing reproductive health data from federal websites, a feminist comrade named and Rutgers alum named Jessica Valenti started collecting that data. And I asked her if she wanted a team of students to help. And so at Rage Lab, we deployed a team of students to collect Jessica's data and then to go scour every state website for women's reproductive data. And they have taken it, they have archived it, they have written abstracts for it, they have redone those abstracts so that they meet 6th grade literacy standards. And then they have built their own database. And they are about to go into beta testing on that website, and we're going to be contacting some of you to see if they did all right, to see to peer test it and peer review it in community to make sure that when folks go for good reproductive health data, they can get it, they can understand it, it can be accessible to them, and they can do it without any disruptions to their privacy. So that is what we're doing. We're fighting on all fronts. So it's not just a theory project over here, it's also an information reclamation project over here too. That's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cooper. And we're going to move to our last presenter on this plenary today, Dr. Jallicia Jolly.
Well, first, thank you, Byllye. Thank you, Byllye. Thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Dázon. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Lynn. And thank you, Lynn. I needed a grounding practice this morning after the third day that daycare opening was delayed because of this terrible weather. And my grounding practice was a poem that I wrote in my second year of grad school, as I was considering dropping out of my PhD program. It was the height of the Black Lives Matter moment. State violence was everywhere. And as I was working on citations in the basement of an Ann Arbor library, I thought, what am I doing here? There has to be a more important way for me to shape impact for my communities. Needless to say, as you can tell, I stayed in grad school, got the PhD. And here's the poem. Hashtag say her name. We don't talk enough about how Black mamas turn pain into laughter, who make whispers sound like a Sunday morning prayer. With speech like machete, tongue like razor, and honey, we come as we are. With no protection but that of our sister's voice, we still come as we are. With no recognition but with that I see you love across the protest line, we come as we are. With no bulletproof vest but that of our ancestors' prayers, we will come as we are. Packing the streets with our chants saying, say her name, say their names. Our deaths will not be an unholy sacrifice, my sister. Ain't no martyrs here. And ain't it just like a Black woman to seek justice, honoring the lives of the dead while the world is at war with her? Today, no more Black woman die in silence. Today, no Black woman is sacrificed before she is deemed worthy of protection, deserving of praise. Today, no Black girl is left hidden in plain sight. Today, no Black trans woman is left bleeding at the margins of our care. Today, these streets clap back. Today, her body is no quiet graveyard. Today, their names raise like thunder to the heavens. The truth is, no black girl dies in silence. We have been here. Through the bloodstained bullets, breaths, and American battlefields, through bodies held captive by thirsty white men, beneath our sisters' clenched fists raised to dark skies, through the say her name chants in the belly of an anti-black misogynist beast, our voice on broken backs, touch streets turn blaze before our knees bend. We say, I say, it's hard to forget the wars our bodies survived from. It's hard to put your lungs and lives on the line when you are often in the trenches. But you fight anyway, and struggle anyway, and live and breathe and fight and laugh and love and sex and cook and fight and breathe and live and laugh and dance. And we have been here. We are still here, coming as we are. I needed to ground myself this morning, and I needed that good cry. Thank you, Byllye. So I'm gonna keep it black and I'm gonna keep it brief. There are three things I wanna make salient in this brief remarks. I'll only need about 4 minutes for. But the first is trust-based philanthropy. The second is a black reproductive justice-led consortium. And the third is spoken word poetry. But we did the third, so we're gonna keep it moving. All of that you mentioned about healing, about care, about joy, one of the ways that I find myself regulating my nervous system and getting into my joy and my rest and my care, especially on sabbatical year, which my friends Tracy and Chelsea make fun of, that I'm not actually doing sabbatical because I'm still working. But this is meaningful, joyful, pleasurable, and so is spoken word poetry for me. So the next two things I want to talk a little bit about. Before, I just want to frame it a bit. The future of reproductive justice will not be written by algorithms, venture capital, or architects of surveillance. It will be written, as it has always been, by communities who refuse disposability and insist that freedom must be practiced together. What Black feminist thought continues to teach me in these times is that justice certainly ain't no algorithm. It cannot be automated. That justice cannot be reduced to a technical problem to be solved through better data or smarter machines. Justice is practice. Justice is relationship. It is world building. It is world making, exactly what we're doing right now in this room. Justice is something we build collectively over time. It is relational. It is storytelling. It is intergenerational. It is archival intervention. And damn, is it healing. And if scholars like Ruha Benjamin remind us, and so many of us in this room, all of you have shared, the future is not neutral terrain. It is a site of political struggle, right? Then what this moment demands is not simply technological innovation and policy reform in isolation. Sure, those are crucial because we know policy determines how resources are mobilized to undermine or create the enabling condition Loretta has been talking about, right? But also, it demands Black feminist leadership. It demands political imagination. So perhaps, as Dr. Robin, and I think Dr. Rajani had mentioned, maybe imagination needs to be a part of the fourth, the next pillar. And it demands collective organizing, continued, capable of redefining what RJ means in this 21st century. So the two things I wanted to mention is first, trust-based philanthropy that invests in and sustains grassroots movement and leadership. And I wanted to give a specific example. So many of the, and then the second thing is the Black reproductive justice-led consortium that unites policy, research, and frontline organizing to drive systemic change. So many of the people in this room can make this consortium, right? In this space, there are Black women-led organizations that have the ability to turn that collective power to put into practice the ideas, the knowledge, the goals generated by this think tank, right? And one of the things that Loretta and I made clearly when we were organizing and actually pitching to our funder is, universities, colleges, and these Western Massachusetts PWIs are not necessarily the site of institutional or societal transformation. So perhaps we should have someone else do this work. We are here doing this work. That's a different conversation, but wanted to give you context. There's an urgent need for new models of what can be possible when sustained investments replace extraction and partnership replaces paternalism. This is demonstrated in a new report. Dr. Laurie Nasai Jefferson, can you raise your hand? New report by Dr. Lori Nasai Jefferson, UMass Boston Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy, and a trust-based philanthropic partner, Boston Women's Fund. The report is called Carrying the Weight, Leading the Change, How Women of Color Grassroots Leaders Navigate Inequities While Driving Solutions. And it's talking about how philanthropy praises these leaders' resilience as they are being structurally denied the conditions that make sustainability possible. In Carrying the Weight, Leading the Change, leaders recount chronic illness, emotional collapse, and exhaustion, not as personal failures, but as predictable outcomes of being asked to hold communities and societies together and deliver impressive metrics with inadequate resources and sustained support structures. What we've been talking about. Right? All right, bet. Let me talk about the recommendations and the findings, because those were phenomenal. And thank you, Dr. Lori, for leading this important work. Current systems underfund the human infrastructure that makes impact possible. The report shared crucial recommendations that some of you have already named. We know what we need. Set inclusive funding goals for BIPOC, women, gender expansive-led groups. Remove barriers. We need simpler applications, participatory philanthropy, building real relationships, right? Do dedicated outreach to women and gender expansive leaders. Partner with intermediaries with community proximity. Fund the full cost of the work, living wages, benefits, rent, tech, insurance, evaluation, multi-year predictable grants. Invest in leadership care. People need coaching, sabbaticals. Thank God for sabbatical. We all need a sabbatical. Wellness stipends, no strings attached. Shared power, community, and decision-making. Community-nominated grantees. I said I'm going to keep it black and I'm going to keep it brief, so I am going to close out by just saying to you, the question before us is not whether the future will arrive. The question is whether that future will be organized around domination or liberation. Freedom has never been delivered by systems. Freedom has always been built by people willing to imagine the world otherwise, and the people are right in this room. Thank you.